episode 1, the Hook Podcast. My name is Braley. KJ on the other end. Let's do this.
What's up, man?
Nothing, man. How are you? There's going to be technical difficulties in this episode. You would think that I would know what I was doing, but I don't actually think I do.
I thought you were a professional.
I mean, that's what they tell
What happens?
me.
What happens if you would have done that on the air?
But there's a difference. As you can see, I'm sitting in my apartment because of my beautiful Christmas lights behind me, and I have no console. We're doing a podcast over Zoom. I'm using iTunes, Apple Music. I don't even know what the heck it's called anymore. So I don't know. I'm just breaking stuff already. Episode 1, and I'm breaking stuff.
Well, didn't you say they just updated it and now you don't know how to play or pause?
No, I hit play, and it played, and then I hit play again, thinking it would pause, just like, the 90s when we had a Walkman, and it played from the start again. I didn't hit repeat.
I do have to say though, Apple sometimes changes things, and then I'm really pissed, and then about 6 months later, I'm like, oh, I'm the idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
like,
way
oh,
easier.
This works. I
This is
understand
way
why you
easier.
did this.
I'm the idiot.
I completely understand. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. Welcome to the Hook Podcast. My name is Brady. That's KJ on the other end. Thank you so much for joining us. Episode 1. This is where we will weekly, bi-weekly, as much as we possibly can. We're going to talk country music. We're going to talk songwriters. And in this episode, we don't have a guest. It's episode 1. We will have guests. Actually, we'll be talking about our next guest coming up later in the episode. But we're just going to kind of go through what we're going to do here on the Hook Podcast. And thanks for joining us. Oh, I had to yawn. Oh my God. Hold on. You're good.
Oh, I was like, were you waiting for me to
no,
jump in?
I yawned. I had more to say. And
I think
yawned.
we have to leave that in.
Oh my
God. The fact that you just looked at me and yawned. I mean, it's kind of late, but it's not that late.
Yeah, I'm an old man. So
are you?
Podcast.
How old are you?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm not as old as you.
Well, that's obvious. You could tell by the gray.
Well, duh. 28.
28. I got married at 28.
Yeah, I know. 10 years ago. Your wife just told me the other day when I was at your house.
I'm 37. Don't add years.
Oh man, but I will say one cool thing that I think we bring to the table that some people do not bring to the table when it comes to this podcast is the experience that we do have. One thing that you'll know about KJ and I, or that you should know about KJ and I, is that we've known each other for coming up on 10 years, man. I was just thinking about that. I moved to Denver 10 years ago today.
Yeah, that was crazy. You basically were set right in front of me, and I was told, this is your new intern. His name's Braley.
Yeah. I didn't even have a thing to do.
This kid's like 18.
I was. Absolutely.
I have to babysit him.
Yeah.
So I didn't get paid enough for that.
No, absolutely. A little backstory to how KJ and I ended up together. I went to broadcasting school here in Denver, where we both are, as you can kind of tell through Zoom and our nice skiddy-scape and KJ's beautiful house, because he's old and accomplished and stuff. But we both come from radio. We both worked in radio together, and KJ was my boss 10 years ago.
Still your boss.
Still sort of my boss, I guess, if you want to call it that. I don't know if you'd say you're my boss, but I don't know.
No, you're about to have a real boss. You're about to get married.
Yeah, I am recently engaged. You
and
have a
by
real
law,
boss.
Yeah, she's my boss
for sure. I know your wife well, and she definitely is your boss.
But she's so nice, though. That's the thing. Like, it's easy to have a boss that's so nice.
Absolutely. And mine is super nice. She's actually sitting just on the other side of the wall here watching Say Yes to the Dress. So
she's a pretty good songwriter too.
She is. She kind of inspired some of this podcast as well. Hopefully we'll have her on. And if not, she will probably be doing some stuff on our website, which thanks to KJ for building, and it is ready to roll. It's up. You'll be able to find our podcast there. You'll also be able to find our video feed there as well.
Yeah, we'll have all our YouTube videos there. We'll chop them up, put them into different sections, but we'll have the whole podcast. We'll be everywhere. We'll be Spotify, iTunes, You name it. Are we gonna do TikTok?
Why not? I'm not on
Uh,
TikTok other than this.
Can
I
we
mean,
do
I don't have a
dances?
TikTok.
Can we do like
No,
no?
no,
Or like I'll do a dance and then you
no,
can you dance?
no.
Can you
I
two
mean,
step?
no.
Come on.
Do I look
All
like
right,
I can dance?
let's set it up. We'll double date. We'll do two stepping lessons at the Rose.
Okay, deal, deal, deal,
Fair?
deal.
Okay.
So you can find us on Instagram at The Hook Podcast. Make sure you go follow us there. We are always following people back. KJ is on there all the time saying what's up to people. And if you happen to be an artist listening to this and you want to jump on, DM us.
Yeah.
Easy as
And
that.
I mean, this is a podcast. We have no one tells us what to do. We want all ends. We want to get people who are up and coming new songwriters, people who don't have songs on the radio, and obviously, we would like to have people also who are on the radio. But that's not important to us. What's important is we come from a background of music and local independent artists. We've both been around that. We've toured. Brayley has a lot more experience than I do on the road, but we've both seen it. We've been there. We've been around music since we were teenagers. So it's important to us to really pull back the curtain of what is going on in music and show everybody the truth, because sometimes it's a lot different than you think it is, and not in a bad way. I think country music is one of those avenues that you really have a lot of people that are involved in the music that you hear on the radio. It's not just one person. It's very rare that one person wrote, produced, I guess that's probably any genre, but really in country music, you tend to have 3, 4, sometimes 5 writers. I don't know. I guess it depends, or, people who are at least contributing to the record. So it's important for us to also give those people a little bit of, you know, recognition, and let them have a stage to be able to tell their stories, because ultimately they're the best storytellers.
Absolutely. I can't I would just second that 100%. That's one thing that the Hook podcast is going to be, is that we are going to pull back the curtain like KJ said. We're going to bring on some of the people that you may not know a name. We may throw out a name in this podcast and you go, I've never heard of that person, but when we have them on, you're going to hear, hey, they wrote some of the biggest songs on country radio, and you're going to go, "Oh, I don't know that person, but I know that song. Oh, I
Yeah.
know that song too." And that's what the hook is going to be. That's what we want it to be. We want to introduce you to some people who, unless you are a nerd like KJ and myself, and there's probably going to be a good amount of people who are listening to this podcast who are also nerds just like us, who
Yeah.
hit that show credits button on Spotify. And if you're new to knowing about songwriters and producing stuff like that, I would challenge you, when you hear a song you really like on Spotify, if you just hit the 3 little buttons in the app, you can just hit show credits or right click if you're on a desktop or a laptop, and it'll show you who wrote it, who produced it, and who their publisher or label is. And it's really cool to see that, because especially in Nashville, you're going to see some names you've never heard of, but then you're going to hear a song on the radio and you're going to see that name again and you're going to be like, "Oh, I know that person. I've heard of that person before." And that's what we want to do here on the Hook, is, show some of those amazing people behind the scenes in Nashville, in Denver, in LA, and in the country music world.
Absolutely. And just it kind of brought me back. I was thinking about being a kid and getting a CD and taking the CD out and unfolding it, and you could find out who wrote, who was producer, who did what. And now it's like, it's not that as a parent, and it's not right there at your fingertips to find out. I mean, I
Yeah,
think I had that conversation with my wife, the same, and that's what we want to do, is become that CD cover, and just really share and shed light on how these records came to be. There's some incredible stories. There's some, interesting, and then really like obvious stories where you're like, yeah, that's exactly how I would think that record was written. So it'll be an interesting way for us to be able to, give a stage for storytellers. And I'm excited to hear some of the stories. Already just digging into our first guest, just
Oh man.
there's a lot out there that you just never know about people.
Our first guest. Oh man, I can't wait. We will talk about our first guest at the end of the episode, at the end of this episode, but next Tuesday is going to be I'm just going to say it right now, even though it sounds weird that we're in episode 1, but next Tuesday is going to be an episode where you go, "Wow, I have never probably heard of this person, and their story and their music is you're immediately going to go find them on Spotify."
Super
I'm calling
talented,
it right now.
super, super talented, very
Absolutely.
smooth voice, just very, very talented.
And I
So
can't wait
I'm
to get into
excited.
that a little bit later. KJ, you did make a mention about the things that we have done in the past, and I think that it would be kind of cool to kind of let the listeners in a little bit on what we have done. As we talked about a minute ago, we met through radio, which is a big consistent in both of our lives, I would say, over the last 10 years, if not. For me, I grew up listening to radio, just like you were talking about, pulling out the liner notes in a CD. Do we just want to kind of give a little background on, your experience and lead up to where we met and how we got back? I wouldn't say reconnected, but where we ended up again together 10 years later.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to. I just I went through a good chunk of my life when I was younger, not really sure where I was gonna go or what I was gonna do, but I always loved music. I always loved sports, and the opportunity to get into radio came, and it's hard. It's as hard of a business as any. It's you have more of an opportunity locally than you do nationally, just like anything else. I would say that's probably the same in music. And so I just, I was working sales jobs. I wasn't really doing anything that I was really happy with. And, you know, by the grace of God, I was laid off, which, no one ever would say, I'm glad I'm laid off. But I got laid off, and I just sat around for like 2 months and collected unemployment and just thought about, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? What do I have passion for? And multiple times I tried to get into radio, and I'd failed miserably. Wasn't going to school for it. There was no reason for them to give me a shot. And so I went to broadcasting school. I really cut my teeth. I was lucky. I was on a morning show in Denver that was at the time the number one morning show. I was interning for that show, and I had learned so much, and I was very blessed to have the opportunities that I did. And so, just went through school, ended up, getting stuck doing something that I wasn't planning on doing, and that was building websites and doing graphics. And I wanted to be on the air. That's all I've ever wanted to do, is
Yeah,
be on the air. And so
absolutely.
I chased that. I chased it. I chased it. And then I fell in love with what I was doing and doing graphics and web design. And, like, I do all the graphics and videos and stuff that you see. It's just Brayley and I. We don't have a huge production team. This isn't, I mean, we do it. This is what we do. We come from this background. But I eventually landed myself working for a cluster of radio stations that includes one of the biggest heritage country radio stations in the world, and that's KYGO. And I'm
Absolutely.
blessed. I've learned so much. Shout out to guys like Eddie Haskell and, Tracy Dixon and people, that Fizz and all the guys, the people that have been there for as long as I was a part of the station
The
for 5 or
legendary
6
Paul
years.
Donovan. I
Yeah,
mean,
Paul.
shout out
Yeah,
to that guy.
exactly. So, just to learn from people in the industry and understand and know about country music and what it is and what it means. And I've learned a lot, and I'm honored to be able to do this podcast and to do it with somebody with also as an extensive background. So if you want to jump in, man.
Yeah, man. I grew up listening to Rick Dees. That's what I
Yeah,
wanted to be.
weekly top 40.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Weekly top 40 Rick Dees. Pre Ryan Seacrest. When I was a kid, you listen to my hometown station was KRCS Hot 93.1, which was the top 40 station. And they played Rick Dees on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings. and KZZI Eagle Country played the Crook and Chase Country Countdown on Sunday mornings. I'd get in the car with my grandpa, he'd turn the radio on, and he'd do the old man, this, and you'd listen to, guys like Mark Chestnut and, Aaron Tippin and Garth Brooks, and, these guys who you kind of take for granted now as we sit here and we listen to the music of now, which I love. I mean, we will not come on this podcast, or I won't at least. I mean, we may, but we're not going to come on and hate on today's country music. That's just not what we're completely
we both like it.
about. Absolutely.
We both like it.
And so, yeah,
we share that a lot. We share the similar taste in music.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And so, me growing up wanting to be Rick Dees, wanting to be, Lon Helton or, Bob Kingsley, I immediately gravitated towards radio. I was the kid who had, the cassettes and the cassette player, and you hit play and pause, and, you do the talk breaks, and they're terrible, but it's so much fun. And fast forward, I ended up at the same broadcasting school as KJ. We were 3 years apart, something like that. I ended up working for KJ as an intern, left, did rock radio, did mornings at one point. And then I left radio. I think most radio people do leave radio at some point. And just like KJ said,
it's a hard business.
It's a very hard business. It's very easy to be good locally. It is not easy to be good nationally. And it, like you said, shout out to some of the people at KYGO who have made a career at one of the best country radio stations in the country, in the world. And I left radio. I was a tour manager. I've played drums for some great bands, some great artists. I have spent a lot of time on the road, and I would never do it again. I hate sleeping in bus bunks, but it does bring a lot of that to light in this podcast. And you'll notice, and not tooting my own horn, but I think KJ will agree to this. You'll notice a lot of the people who we have on here for the first little while are going to be friends of mine, I would say.
Yeah, we might just start a section right away that's friends of Braley.
Yeah. And then I was lucky enough after all of that to end up at KYGO as well. And in this situation, I do have to shout out the legendary Paul Donovan. If you know anything about KYGO, Paul Donovan was and still is that magical voice in the afternoons that just, I mean, the guy can put a smile on your face, and he'll have a smile on his face no matter 25 inches of snow outside, a tornado, hail, or the best Colorado day ever. Paul is the guy who will put a smile on your face. And shout out to him because he's kind of one of the big reasons I ended up on KYGO. And after all of that, I am lucky enough to do this podcast as well. And with somebody who shares the love for the backside of music just like I do. And that's what we want to bring to you here on the Hook Podcast.
Man, it's in my blood. I don't, I don't know how else to explain it, but my family is deep rooted in America and this country. And my great grandmother came to, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but my great grandmother came to Colorado in a covered wagon from Oklahoma.
Dang.
And they had a homestead in Bennett, which is it might as well be Kansas. It's so far east, it might as well be Kansas.
Past where I was today. Like we were just talking about before the podcast.
Way out. So they just deep roots of being here and being in the West and mountain country, that we haven't had anyone who's really done that. I've always said, like, it'd be cool if somebody could really like do mountain country, but it seems like Nashville's starting to like Colorado a little bit. So I guess us being here isn't such a bad thing, because and plus we get every tour. It's Absolutely. Very rare that a tour doesn't come to Denver or to our area. I live in northern Colorado, so I don't live quite in the Denver metro, but yeah, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to get up to Cheyenne Frontier Days too. So, it's with it. This is what I grew up going to rodeos. I grew up, country music is in my blood. My mom listened to the Judds. My mom listened to George Strait. I
Yep.
mean, I think my parents said that one of the first concerts they went to was George Strait at McNichols, which doesn't
Oh
even
man.
exist,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. My
So
mom went and saw, it's funny you brought up Shine Frontier Days. My mom saw Garth Brooks. I want to say the year I was born in late July. Frontier Days is in late July. I'm pretty sure that my mom saw Garth Brooks while pregnant. And for the first time, I got to see Garth Brooks with you a year ago.
with my son, my wife
Yeah.
was pregnant with
Yeah.
Jack.
Jack,
So
he
that's
was
kind of
like
crazy.
your wife was very pregnant.
Yeah, she was ready.
Our women, I will say, put up with a lot that day because it was hot.
And then us, we get
Yeah, I mean,
together and
we had a good time. We
you
hadn't seen
know,
each other in a little
we were in the
while,
tailgate. We were at the tailgate party.
for sure.
It was
Um,
awesome.
that's funny. I didn't put this in the rundown, but I do want to say, what was your first country concert? Let's say concert in general and country concert.
Man, I didn't go to concerts when I was a kid. I think the only concert I was ever taken to was like Ninja Turtles live at, the the
You weren't on the
convention
radio.
center. Dude, no. That was, you know what? Funny story. My aunt was dating a guy that was in radio and he got her the ticket. So that's
Perfect.
kind of
Perfect, man.
but yeah, my first, honestly, like I kind of dipped out of country music for a while. It was it just, I don't know, the 2000s. I was young and into hip hop, and then I was into more like rock, like punk rock.
Yeah, we
We
come from
both
the
were into
same
that,
scene,
and
which
so
is
I
kind
kind
of
of
funny.
faded. I faded out, but then guys like Florida Georgia Line actually brought me back. Like they were so different to me, and I mean Zach Brown too. They brought me back, but honestly, Darius Rucker was the first country concert I ever went to, and it was at Red Rocks.
I
So
mean,
I guess getting back into radio brought me back into it, and
yeah,
that's honestly how I ended up where I am now. But man, I've just like fallen hard for these new artists. I think they're phenomenal. I think there's so much talent out there, and people can say what they want because that the whole bro country thing or whatever that was 10 years ago, that's long gone. The writers, I mean, it's unbelievable. These writers in Nashville right now, they just blow my mind. They're so talented.
so talented. It's insane. And when you made a comment earlier about how my fiance is a great writer in her own. It's funny because her and I have that conversation of we'll talk about what her what her play is in the song that she's writing, and she'll be like, yeah, I've learned that I have to stay one step ahead, because what's on the radio now was written 9 months ago,
Right.
and that
People don't
is
realize that. It takes a
exactly, it
long
takes a
time to get a record out.
long time to get songs cut, and I mean, it's crazy to think how long it does take. Your first concert was way cooler than mine, I'll tell you that. um Mine was Lee Greenwood. You know who Lee Greenwood is?
Yeah.
The God Bless the
Yes.
USA guy. That's who I saw. That was my
Definitely.
first country concert, and he sang the song 6 times.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you. 6
That's
times
kind
in
of
one day.
overkill.
It
I mean,
was
don't get me wrong. I love the song, but
oh, me
that's a
too.
little overkill.
It was a little
That's too
much.
much.
It was like 4th of July all night. That's kind of what it felt like to me. It's funny you brought up the fact that the writers in Nashville are the ones who are really changing the game. I don't think a lot of people realize that, and I'm not going to discredit artists because there's a lot of artists out there who write a lot of their own stuff or are part of the writing group on their own stuff. And so I can't say that people all they do is take outside songs, but there is a lot of outside songs out there written by some really, really good writers that you have never heard of. And it does take a long time for some of that stuff to kind of push forward. And the stuff you're hearing now is stuff that, was being written last year when we were listening to ballads and, stuff like that, when stuff was a little bit slower. And now, they're pushing the tempo again and stuff's getting a little different. And you're getting those before you're having kind of that, I wouldn't call it a hippie movement, but that everybody shouts out Colorado because we know why everybody's shouting out Colorado. And now we're into the not so much I drive a truck and my girl left me and my dogs in the passenger seat songs. And it's, there's some substance to it. And it's really, really good.
Yeah, it's gosh, we'll talk more about it, but that the new Russell Dickerson album just blew my mind.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely. Let's just jump into
it's
that.
phenomenal.
Let's go through the new releases this week. This is something that we'll probably do every week and just kind of shout out the new releases for the week. The new Russell Dickerson record, Southern Symphony, is out. It came out on Friday, and it is really, really good.
It's insane. I literally wrote straight fire.
Yeah,
That's how I feel about that record. It
it's
is
so good.
straight. It's like, and what's cool about it is that I got such a like an anthem vibe
Yeah,
from the record, like from start to finish. It just has like this, like, like it's upbeat. Like there are some more laid back songs, but it's powerful, and I just feel like they just the production on it. That's what really got me was I just feel like it was really well written. The lyric is phenomenal across the board, and then some of the songs like blew me away, like the one with FGL. What is that one called?
yeah, it's about time with
It's about
FGL.
time.
My favorite part of that song, and this is something that we
Oh, I
will
hope
talk
you say
about.
it because I wrote it.
This is something we'll talk about a lot on the podcast. Is that there are certain pieces of song that are written in that you go, I never would have thought of that. But the hands up like a
I hope you
Baptist
say it.
choir and the awe,
Oh yeah.
it gets me every time, every single
Well,
time.
that's funny. I didn't even write that lyric, but there's another one in it that I wrote that's "We ready like truck stop ice."
Yeah, it's right
I
after
mean,
that. It's we ready like truck stop ice, hands up like a Baptist choir. Ah, and there's like a choir awe in it. And they specifically pause. But
that song's crazy.
to think about what had to go into the thought of we ready like truck stop ice, because we all have bought ice at a truck stop before and it's ready ice. Like there's
Yeah.
so many little things in the writing that you would have never. I personally, I've been in the studio, I've written songs with people. I have never been that clever. And I'm happy that you
No.
brought that up.
Yeah, it just blew me away, the whole record. I mean, I sat like gosh, man, I just don't even know what to say. It's just so good. It's really that good.
And
Like
it's produced by the legendary Dan Huff. And you'll probably hear Dan's name a lot come up on the Hook podcast, I will say, because he's a legendary guitar player in Nashville. He was a session guy for a long time, and he produces a lot of great records. You know, he's produced the new Lindsay L record, which is phenomenal. If there's a
she is super
2020 record that you
talented.
need to go check out, that record is awesome. And I will say, I'm not going to hate on any radio people in this podcast because I'm a radio person myself, but 95% of that record is about a very, very large country personality, and it makes me laugh so hard. I'm not going to say it,
No, but I
but it
don't
makes
listen
me
to that
laugh.
guy.
It makes me chuckle. I just have to. Um, the
It's
song that
kind of
you
funny.
the Russell
It's
Dickerson
kind of
song.
funny when you listen to when you know that and you listen to the record. It's kind of funny,
Yeah. I mean, she
'cause
even makes a comment in there, and it's clever
it's
writing.
very
Lindsay's
Taylor Swift-ish.
very much so. Lindsay's a great writer, and it's not cheesy. But there's a comment that she says, and then I turn on the radio and I remember, and you go, oh, she
I
turned on
get
the
it.
radio because he's on the radio. Like,
Oh,
oh, that's
smart.
pretty genius.
No, what I like about her is that she's one of the very, very few artists that are out, period, that you can honestly say that the musician or the instrument that they play, they're just as good at as a singer. There's
Absolutely.
very, very few artists out there who are that accomplished in their instrument, and she is a phenomenal guitar player.
Absolutely. And she played on her last record, she played every instrument. She played every instrument on the whole
Fantastic. I
entire record.
believe it.
And it was produced by Christian Bush from Sugarland. So, you get that, that mid 2000s, and Christian Bush from Sugarland, who's somebody we'll probably talk about later in the podcast, not today, but another day, is a very accomplished guy and comes from that Hootie and the Blowfish, Edwin McMahon, early 90s, Southern Atlanta, Savannah rock. And so, you can hear a lot of that, which is cool to think about. And that's why we bring stuff like that up on the Hook podcast, is because you'll listen to a Sugarland song and go, oh my gosh, now I get where that riff comes from. It's from that, that time in his life where he was part of a band that was so good, and his brother's in Train, and it's just, you can hear these things, and that's why we're nerds at this. I mean, this is a nerd podcast, I would say.
Yeah, you're more of a nerd than I am, but yeah,
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
nerds.
Cool thing about this Russell record is I did hear an interview with Russell, and he was talking about how, he writes with a lot of the same people all the time. You don't see that as much with somebody. I would say Russell's a star. I wouldn't say Russell's a superstar. He's not Luke Combs. He's not Sam
He's on
Hunt,
the
but
rise though.
he
No,
is
he's not.
absolutely on the rise.
He's not in that tier yet, but man, he's gonna be quick.
If there's 1A, he is 2A. I mean, he
will have
right
multiple
there.
number ones off this record.
Absolutely.
I will say it right now. He'll have multiple number ones. I don't know how many, but I can tell you that just listening to it, at least 2 of them are smashes.
Absolutely.
And then, gosh, man, it could be. I mean, I think his new single, "The Way I Used to Love You," is that
yeah,
one?
like I used to,
like
I used to.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I get sometimes dyslexia and say things that I shouldn't. But that song's gonna be number one. It's just a matter of time. It's already in top 5, isn't it?
It went number 1 last.
Oh, it was
2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, I lied. Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, because last week was
missed
Hardy One Beer. So
yeah,
but again,
that's my fault. Sorry, Russell.
Kind of like I was talking about, he wrote that song with the 2 guys who he wrote It's About Time with, Casey Brown and Parker Welling. And so what's cool about what we're going to do is that we're going to jump in and we're going to talk about people like Casey Brown and Parker Welling, who now have, I want to say that's at least their second Russell number 1 out of the 4, if not 3 number 1s out of the 4. And then I would say that It's About Time with FGL is probably going to be the next single, if I had to guess.
You think?
There's
a couple other on there I could see.
Oh man, there's some brilliant writers on this record too, to where, you never know. You never ever know. A couple of the other writers that I do want to shout out on this record, Corey Crowder, who is, the Nashville big gun right now. He's, I mean, there's a lot of songs we could play that you'd go, oh, I know that song. And while we do this, I will say we can't play any music on the podcast, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, maybe
trying to figure it out.
We'll try.
We want everybody to get paid correctly. So I'm not going to break the rules and not let people get paid by us playing songs in a podcast and they're not getting paid for it, because that's completely opposite of what we're trying to do here. And so if you do want to check out some of the stuff we're talking about, we will have a special curated playlist for each episode that'll be up on our Spotify and it'll be up on our website. So if you want to go check that out and hear some of the stuff that we're talking about, we'll definitely have a couple of Russell songs in there, and we'll throw in some other people that we've talked about as well today in there.
Yeah, I'm excited to do some of the reviews. We're going to blog as much as we can and write about some of these records and really try and highlight different aspects of the records that we don't talk about on the pod. So we'll continue to try and put some of that content when we have something, when we find a playlist of an album that's really good and we decide that that's something we want to review, or maybe I don't know. I doubt I'll probably review something that I hate, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So most of them will probably be records that I love, so that I can tell you why I love them and why I think that you should listen to them. And if I could right now, I would write, after listening to that whole record, I would write a review on that. It's
absolutely. Good. Absolutely. And that's something that we will also, be pushing. We'll ask you, we'll ask each other to review albums. And I think that another segment that we're going to do outside of podcasts where we have guests is that KJ is going to give me a record to listen to, and I'm going to give him a record to listen to, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it, because there is some stuff that I'm into that you're not into, and there's stuff that you're into that I'm not into.
Sure.
And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. I think that we also just come from different backgrounds of genres of music, and some of the stuff that I was influenced by, or I am influenced by, like I could listen to a Hank Williams Sr. album from start to finish. I don't know that Braley would do that. I think that's just, and then, there's probably a record like that Braley could throw out there that I'm like, yeah, I probably wouldn't listen to that all the way through, but I'd definitely check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that's where we can kind of combat each other in a way, because this show is not really going to be about arguments or competition or, anything like that. Really, this to the way I see this podcast is this is just a storytelling podcast. We're either going to tell you stories about stuff that we found out, or we're going to actually have the artists and the songwriters come on and tell it for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's cool about, having some of the songwriters and some of the people who we have lined up, it's going to be really cool to hear not just their personal story and how they ended up in Nashville and how they became a songwriter, but the story behind what went into writing that song. And then also what went into getting it on the radio, because there's two whole different worlds there. Just like you and I had talked about the other day, there's a lot of people who, you may write 300 songs in a year. As a writer in Nashville, you may have to write 150 songs a year. But if you write it with three people, you're only getting a third of a song. So you may write 300 songs a year. And so it's going to be really cool to hear the stories of how out of the 300 songs that you wrote, did that song end up on the radio? And I'm excited for that.
Me too. And also to hear the stories of their trip to Nashville and how they ended up getting where they've gotten. And there's also this other path through Texas, Austin, and then depends on what you're playing. Some of them just play, a lot of the honky tonks around the outskirts of Texas.
Yeah,
But there's kind of two paths to, it seems, to be, a country artist in today's music world, and one is through the Texas scene, the Texas country scene, and then Nashville. But what you end up seeing is a lot of the Texas artists end up having to move to Nashville anyways, but they really cut their teeth in two different places, and you kind of see that, and you can hear it, like, Parker McCollum, you can hear his influence, his Texas Austin influence, and then eventually you got to flip over and move to Nashville, to really be able to break through. But it's kind of cool to see those two difference of sounds. Also, it's very, very different in the sound of music. So
absolutely. And then you've got bands
that.
you've got bands like you were talking about, Parker McCollum. And I immediately think when we talk Texas country who moved to Nashville, I think of Eli Young Band. That's a band
Great
who
band.
was a big Texas country band and, cut their teeth in Texas and cut their teeth on that, that Austin and those small Texas towns. I mean, you could tour Texas all year and never leave the state of Texas and still drive 6 hours every night. And you think about those bands who have transitioned, and somebody like Granger Smith, and there's a lot of now Cody Johnson. There's another one that's kind of transitioned into that you hear on the radio and you go, oh, that's a little bit different. It's not
He's
exactly
old
the same,
school
but it's a
too,
little
though.
bit different. Absolutely.
He's got that 90s sound. He's got that 90s country. He's bringing a rodeo back.
For sure.
He's got that real deep rodeo country sound, which
It's funny,
I love too.
You brought up going to rodeos and then the rodeo sound. Just a little fun fact. My fiance's brother-in-law is a 2-time NFR saddle bronc champion. And so rodeo is like weirdly in my life too.
Love rodeo. I love it. I love bull riding. I follow PBR. I follow that harder than I do anything else. Honestly.
A couple more things that were out this week. The new Chase Rice and FGL. It's called Drinking Beer, Talking God, Amen. Written by Corey Crowder, big gun in town. Hunter Phelps, big gun in town. And then along with Chase Rice.
It feels like Hunter's on everything. Is that me, or is he like feels like everything he's got his hands on is hot right now?
Yeah, it is. I don't know exactly what Hunter's first cut was, but I always think of him on. He was on the third FGL record. He had like two, he had Smile and another one on the third FGL record, and then ever since then, I mean, it's like every other thing I click on, it's Hunter Phelps, and that's, I mean, the guy's grinding, and that's another person who we want to have on the podcast and introduce you to, because you'll see that name and you'll go, oh, hey, that's what they were talking about on the Hook podcast, Hunter Phelps. I know him. That I can hear part of that in this song. It's like a little bit of his signature in this song, which is really cool. And Kale Dodds, who I've met, I think you met him as well when he came into the station. Super good guy. All those guys are awesome. And then Chase wrote that song as well with FGL. They're trying to kind of repeat that cruise magic.
That is what is that the term? That's tall cotton.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I don't know, man.
because Chase wrote
It's
Cruise.
a good song. It's a good song.
It is.
I listened to it a couple of times and I really like it. It kind of has that Cruise vibe to it a little bit. You can hear the influence, of that, but not too much, and I think maybe it's just because of the way that, Chase writes music and then the way FGL sings it, it just but yeah, it's a good record. I listened to it a couple of times today. I thought it was good.
Yeah, and FGL just announced yesterday or on Friday that they are going to be putting a new record out on February 12th, which will be really cool. And shout out to a friend of mine, Jake Rose has a song on the new FGL record. So that's,
Nice.
I mean, as a Nashville writer, that's really big.
It's about as big as it gets right now, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And the song's actually out. It was on the EP, but it's going to be on the record as well. So if you want to go support a friend, go out and listen to Countryside. It was written by one of my really good friends who comes from the world that KJ and I came from, comes from the rock world. And you'll see that a lot too. I think we'll hear about that a lot from some of the people who we have on the podcast, that they come from a different genre. They didn't grow up in country music. Now you'll hear that a lot, that they grew up in country music, or they, their family's from Texas and they grew up on George Strait and stuff like that. But I think you'll also hear a lot that guys come from rock. They come from pop. They come from being a guitar tech for somebody. Russell Dickerson was Chris Tomlin's guitar tech, which is like a very weird, who's a big, huge Christian artist, probably one of the biggest Christian artists there is. And Russell was his guitar tech for years. And Chris says that he was the worst guitar tech he's ever had, which he just said on the Opry the other night, which I thought was very entertaining. But I think you're going to hear that. And like you were saying, there's going to be different paths, and it's going to be really, really interesting. And that's what we want to focus on in this podcast of, how did your favorite song get made?
Right. Who made it?
Exactly.
And what else did they make?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what blows me away is the web of songwriters, and just even having a little what just kind of like pivot. This kind of made me think of, over the last, I don't know, I'd say like 5 to 7 years, I've noticed that in country music that songwriters are now becoming artists.
Yeah.
And it's less of the face, and then we're going to write music for this person, and then they're going to put their little bit of touch on it just so they could say they were a part of the songwriting process. But really, the song was written and produced really before they even got it. They might have changed a lyric or two, and they're like, yeah, okay, now I'm part of it. But those days are gone. I mean, it's most artists are songwriters in Nashville right now. It's very, very rare that you find an artist. You could probably count them on one hand that are only singers and don't write. And that's crazy. That's what blows me away. That's what makes it so much more creative, and what makes it so much more interesting of style of music. And like you said, there's so many cross genres, and you have the different areas of Nashville that are now like merging and influencing each other. And whether it's, the indie rock side or the hip hop side, or they all are kind of coming together into this big conglomerate of music. And it's just crazy weird how country music has evolved. But what's cool is that you still are going to get artists who are going to bring you back to your roots. You mentioned Cody Johnson. One of my favorite up and coming artists right now is Randall King.
Yeah.
The dude he's another one of those Texas guys that's come up through and has now moved over to Nashville and is starting. But that dude, I'm telling you, man, if he gets the right songs in his corner, he could be in an atmosphere of the greats. Like he has that talent, but he's a songwriter. He's and that's what you hear a lot. And I love that. I love those stories, because then they actually have a stake in the game on these albums. And I love that, because that means they're actually writing it and they care, and it's deeper. I'm interested to see what happens with COVID and the writing, because you were talking about how records are 2-3 years behind. It's really going to be interesting to see what kind of records come out in the next year or two, because they're all being written right now.
Yeah. And they're written over
this
Zoom.
Is such a weird time, and nobody's doing anything. There's no touring. There's no nothing. You're just writing.
I just saw
And
that Luke
so
Combs just put a video on YouTube of another unreleased song.
why not?
Just
I mean,
yeah, and I
and that's
think
today's
it's
society too. You'll start of just singles, putting out
absolutely,
singles.
and I think that that's a good point that you brought up. Of I would say that there is probably I can only off the top of my head think of a few artists who all they do is take outside songs. They don't write them themselves or are part of the writing process, or are sadly some of the people who take a song and just change one word or two words to make it so that they're part of it. Because Nashville doesn't work like LA where they pay out on words. Nashville goes just in clear cut chunks of the pie. And so I think that gone are those days where, people go in and they go, today we're going to write a Garth Brooks song because I heard that Garth was cutting songs or was grabbing songs to cut. Gone are those days. I think a lot
Exactly.
of the stuff that you're hearing is stuff that is written with the artist in mind, or written with not so much the artist in mind, sorry, but with the artist. And I
Correct.
think that that's what's really cool. And one thing that I think that you'll learn through this podcast and that we want to help teach is that, you'll hear a lot of these guys have their own little, what they call camps in Nashville. That's kind of like the term is, whose camp are you in? Are you in the Sam camp? Are you in the Carrie camp? Are you in the Lady A camp? And not to say that they don't merge, but if you look at a Carrie song, you're going to see some of the same people. If you look at a Kenny Chesney record, you're going to see some of the same people. The Shane McAnallys, the Josh Osbornes, the, Matt Ramsey from Old Dominion. You're going to see those specific people on those same songs over and over again, because there isn't those days where everybody's writing songs for people. They're writing them all together. And when you get a hit, why not try it again? Just like we were
Yeah.
talking about Chase Rice and FGL with Cruz.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's very cool to me, and it's very intriguing, and I hope that the people that listen to this podcast are also um inspired by that. And that it's really open the door for singer songwriters to really make a name for themselves. And if you're good and you can get in, I mean, it's still, it's still hard. It's still music. It's never going to be easy. You have to be super talented. And now everyone is talented.
Yeah.
Everyone can write. Everyone can sing.
And
So
everybody can
now
produce
it's not
something.
just, yeah, exactly. You could write, produce your own record. They're all super talented. They've come from layers and layers of music backgrounds. A lot of them went to college together,
Mm-hmm.
and pick one of the schools that music is made at, and they probably went there. So, yeah, it's really very very talented people, and I'm excited to meet some of them and hear their stories.
Absolutely. I think we're going to hear some really cool stories. There's some people who are going to be on the podcast that I know that I've heard some of the stories and I go, wow, that was pretty freaking cool, and I'm really excited to highlight some of these people. We were,
Speaking of speaking of going behind the curtain,
yeah,
let's talk about Old Dominion.
okay, the
I'm
new Old
very
Dominion.
intrigued by this.
Yeah, there
I'm very
is,
intrigued by this record that they're putting out.
so there's a new Old Dominion EP. Like KJ said, it's called Band Behind the Curtain, which is going to be really, I hope that this is more than just the 3 songs. So Friday they put out 3 songs. Um, they put out Save It for a Rainy Day, which was a Kenny Chesney #1. They put out Say You Do, which was a Dirk Bentley #1, and Make You Miss Me, which was a Sam Hunt #1, all written by usually 2 of the 3 of the 5 guys of Old Dominion. 3 of the guys, Old Dominion as a band writes most of their music together, the 5 of them. But Matt, Brad, and Trevor are some of the most accomplished songwriters in all of Nashville. And
They
this
wrote a
thing
lot
is
of songs.
really cool. And I don't know if you listen to it, but if you listen to Save It for a Rainy Day, the words are different. And I'm really excited that they left the original words in this version.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you noticed or saw what they did was they re-recorded everything.
Yeah.
So it's all fresh recordings of the songs that they wrote. So they like went in, they actually went in with Shane McNally and had him produce the entire EP.
Yeah.
And it's really good because you're like you hear the song and it sounds the same, but they did it in their own way. And what it made me realize is that all three of those songs were number ones
Mhm.
with other artists recording them.
And three
If
completely different artists too.
if
Like,
they would have if they put those records out, they still would have been number ones. I
absolutely.
really believe that. Those songs are when they, and just hearing them the way that we're hearing them is really cool. It's such a different, because if you go to country concerts, you hear, like, if let's just say, like, you go to a Sam Hunt concert, he will play records that he wrote that he didn't put out,
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
he will play those songs.
Like Kenny Chesney
This
Come
is a
Over. He
record
always
of that.
plays that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they do it their way, and when you watch it live, you're like, "Whoa, okay. Now I understand why that song sounded the way that it sounded." And now they actually wrote the record, gave it to someone else, and then they got it back, and then they recorded it the way they wrote it. And it's
Yes.
really, really cool. And I've just never, and I think that just lends to songwriting in Nashville, of how talented these guys are. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I can't say it enough. That's why we're doing this podcast.
And it's
It's
almost
it's the
demo
exact
style.
reason.
It's
Yeah,
like
it's
almost demo
very
style,
cool.
which is cool. I have a weird Old Dominion, not a weird Old Dominion story, but a cool Old Dominion story. I saw Old Dominion before the record was out, before Meat and Candy, the original record, was out. Break Up With Him may have been on the charts or was just getting played on radio. I don't know if it was where it was at, but there's a songwriter festival in my hometown in South Dakota, and they were the part of the songwriter festival because they were all writers at that point that just kind of had this band that nobody really knew if it was going to be a thing. And they had a song on the radio, but the record wasn't out. And Break Up With Him was a little weird because it was like the beginning of that kind of like talky thing that they did before Sam was a big deal. And I went to their writers round and they played all of their hits. And at that time, they had every hit on the damn radio. It was insane. But it was so much fun because they played like Van Perry Chainsaw, Craig Morgan Wake Up Loving You, Sam Hunt Ecstasy, Make You Miss Me, Save It for a Rainy Day. I feel like was just like out that summer, and this was in the fall. Um, they had Guy Walks Into a Bar, Tyler Farr. That was like the biggest song of the summer at that point. And it's so cool to think,
That was a good song.
yeah. And you think about it and you go, wait, those three dudes? And sometimes it's one of them, and sometimes it's two of them, and sometimes it's all three of them. But those guys don't need to be in Old Dominion. They're making money writing songs and could stay home, but they also are so creative that all five of them together is like a super group almost. And that's why Old Dominion is so good. And that's why this whole EP, and I hope that there's more of it, is really, really good. I
Yeah,
love it.
well, when first you put it on the rundown, and I hadn't listened to it yet because I just hadn't got to it. Gosh, it just seems like every day there's like new music, and
Yeah.
sometimes I get enamored with like new artists, and and sometimes I forget that, to check in on some of this. And you sent that over, and it took me a minute to get to it, but it blew me away. It was so creative, and it doesn't surprise me that they would do something this creative, because this is exactly what we feel like. We need to start pulling the curtain back a little bit, because these songwriters deserve to be recognized, and um you know th- they just deserve to have a platform to tell their story.
And a lot of the time, and you kind of hear it in this Old Dominion record, in this EP, is that, they write the song and they don't just write it. They go in and they demo it because somebody's got to hear it and kind of hear what your thought is. And I wouldn't say 95% of the time it's the same, but it's pretty dang close. I mean, there's a good amount of the time where it's pretty dang close to what the demo was. And this is kind of cool because they left the original lyrics, like you said, and it's not demo quality, but it's definitely demoed. It's like a demo, but it's very like very, very produced. And
Yeah,
it's really cool. I was listening to it in the car earlier, and it came to a point in Save It for Rainy Day, and the words are changed, and I was like, love it. I love it. I love when the
great.
words are different. Because you think back and you go, I know what the words are, but is it cooler with the other ones? And then after you listen to it a few times, then you hear it on the regular one on the radio and you sing it the other way and you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I think it's kind of awesome.
I like it.
And that's what this podcast is a lot about, because there is people in Nashville who are insanely talented who you've never heard the names of. There's people in this podcast that we've talked about that you've probably never heard the names of.
But
And
we'll
it's
keep
going to
talking
be
about
really
them.
cool.
And we'll keep talking
Absolutely.
about what they're doing and just shedding light on that.
Yeah. Top songwriters of the week. I love to go into this. There is a chart online that literally pulls by plays, just like on Radio Chart, and it pulls the top songwriters of the week, and it shows exactly who, who's on the top of the charts. And I want to highlight this as much as we possibly can, because some of these people, are people who you've never heard of. Josh Osborne, #1 this week. He's got the new Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani, which I think should be the #1 song in the country this week. He's got the new Darius Rucker, the new Rascal Flatts, Morgan Wallen, Seven Summers, Sam Hunt, Breaking Up Was Easy in the 90s, the new Carly Pierce, and the new Old Dominion. How cool is it to have a guy who most people have never heard of that has 7 songs that are probably in the top 20? I think that is awesome. It's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And that's the people that we want to talk to and talk about, and the things that we want to talk about on the podcast. A couple more names that were on there this week: Hillary Lindsay, Ross Copperman, Ashley Gorley, and Hardy. Hardy's in at #7 this week. He's got Chris Lane, Big Plans. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong line. Morgan Wallen, More Than My Hometown. Hardy, One Beer, which was the #1 song in the country last week, and the new Cole Swindell single, Saturday Night. And that is another person, like you were talking about, who is an insanely accomplished writer, who is an insanely good artist.
And he's way different of an artist than I thought he was going to be. Or that I would expect him to be, based on what he writes for these hits that he's writing are way different than him as an artist. So I think it's really cool that he takes a really different approach. He kind of has that southern rock vibe to his music, and it's really good, man. He's really blown me away.
Yeah, absolutely.
As an artist, not obviously blows everyone away as
a writer.
I mean, gosh, some of the songs that he's written are just unbelievable, but cool to see him get his first #1.
Yes. And that's a really good song too. With some good people.
Didn't Devin Dawson, wasn't that his first #1 too, I think?
No, Devin had a #1 with All on Me or All on You, whatever the original Devin single was. But that's a #1 for Hardy and Devin Dawson and Lauren Elena. And I'm pretty sure that they may have written that all together too, which is kind of cool. I'm gonna look.
It's a good song.
It's really Hillary unique. Lindsay and Jake Mitchell wrote that with Hardy, which is really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I it's cool because you made that comment about how the songs that Hardy has on other artists and the songs that he puts out are kind of completely different. Some of those, Blake Shelton, God's Country, Chris Lane, I Don't Know About You, Morgan Wallen, More Than My Hometown, his own song Rednecker. He had Simple with FGL. He's done a Diplo song. He just had a #1 with Some Girls with Jameson Rogers like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and Uptown is probably, Uptown and God's Country, probably the 2 biggest songs that I would say that you would know as a listener, just a casual country music listener, that you listen to Hardy and go, oh, I know that song. And so that's really cool. That's really, really cool.
Great songwriter. And he's a cool dude too.
Super nice guy.
I met him when he came through the station, and
yeah,
he was super down to earth, man. Just a really cool guy.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of this podcast is going to be about. We're going to focus on, these writers who are having songs that, you hear on the radio, but you may not know their name, or they have artist careers and their songs are completely different. And now with the days of singles and Spotify and Apple Music and stuff like that, it gives these guys a little more of a platform, and we want to help in that situation because a lot of these guys don't have an artist backing. They take a draw from their publisher and they write really good songs and they hope that they get cut, but when they put out their artist stuff, they don't have anybody backing them, and that's what we want to be.
You sent me something the other day that just really made me think about what also is important in all of this is that these songwriters, like you sent the example you sent,
I'm
I
trying to
will
find it
leave
right
him
now.
nameless. I don't really know who it is, but they
Yeah.
posted that they have 2 million streams this last year on Spotify, and they made like $1.50.
Yeah.
And it, we get caught up in this world that, oh well, they're on, they're a part of this song and this song is huge and everybody's listening to it. Yeah, that's true, everybody's listening to it. But the streaming world, you had referenced this a couple of times, is that it's kind of the Wild West in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, that it's really still new. And a lot of these platforms are really new. And you think back on like old stuff like Napster days, and like
Yeah.
stuff that happened and the people stealing music. And at that point in time, music pretty much became, uh, you didn't make money on music anymore at that point because it was being shared and streamed in different ways. And now today we have these streams that at least give them a little bit of money, but that gets divided amongst a lot of people. There's a lot of hands in the pot. So, I just want to say, if you know an independent artist, if you know somebody who's out there doing their thing and they're really talented and they deserve um, credit for how talented they are, go out, buy merch, buy something from their website, support them in other ways than just streaming their music. That doesn't necessarily pay the bills for them.
Absolutely.
And we got to keep music live. This is an important time
For
for
sure.
for that.
And the comment that we were talking about, I just found it on my phone, and I thought I'd read it out. It says, and we'll leave the person nameless, but it's somebody that I do know, and also works for a very large band, and that's kind of where we'll leave it. But it says, I have 1.2 million streams as an unsigned writer. Now, there's a difference between being an artist and being a writer. Some people have a publishing deal, and that's where a lot of that gets pushed to the artist. You write a song, you give it to your publisher pitches it to an artist cuts it, and you make money off of that. I have 1.2 million streams as an unsigned writer, thanks Spotify, and the total was $1.94. Made $1.94 on
Uh,
1.2 million streams,
think about how hard you work for 1.2 million streams.
and you have
I mean,
nobody
let's just
pushing
be
it.
honest.
It's
Yeah, and
crazy.
it's independent. You're on your own. You're
Yeah.
completely on your own. So any promotion that you do, if you buy ads, if you do any of that stuff, that's on you. The work that you do on your social media to drive people to listen to these songs, to stream, that's on you.
Yeah. And I will say, like you said, go and support those people because those are the people who are really, really pushing it. And what's also kind of sad to think about too is that person has 1.2 million streams and made $1.94 as an unsigned person. Now think to a person that we've talked about in this podcast where, they may have 1.2 million streams, but they also have a publishing deal. And so you think, okay, that's getting cut, let's say 3 ways because you wrote it with 2 other people, plus your publisher, plus your manager, plus this, plus that. That $1.94 may have been now 94 cents, you know, 35 cents. I've seen guys who have 350 million streams make $36 after their publishing and everything. It's crazy. And that's what we want to talk about on this podcast because it is the wild, wild west. There is really no rules when it comes to Spotify and when it comes to Apple Music. And so please make sure to go out and support your favorite independent artists. Or if you hear a song that, we've talked about on the podcast and
Buy it on iTunes.
absolutely, please buy it. Go search that writer out. 95% of the time, they're going to have a website. They're going to have some sort of a merch or an artist career. Go support them as much as you can because this is a trying time and it's only going to get crazier. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's insane right now. And I just want music to stay alive, just like you said, and keep it the way it is. But let's fix Spotify and Apple Music and streaming and I replied to that person on Instagram and I said, this is nuts. And his
Yeah.
reply was, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I don't.
And it's hard because you know, as a like to me, whatever, we'll put our stuff on YouTube. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, like I if Spotify shut us out because we're calling them out for what it is, whatever. I don't care. I'll put my podcast somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'll make sure you have a way to get it. But these artists, they don't have any other option. And some of the people that you think of that are behind the scenes that we're talking about that are directly impacted by this, like sometimes the label can cover things and do things to help, in times like this. But like you said, if you don't have a deal and you don't have somebody to support you at this time, artists make their money on the road. They make their
Absolutely.
money on tour. That's why artists tour so much. If anyone is wondering that why, like, oh, they were just here. Well, yeah, they got to keep touring because part of it is to stay relevant. But with digital media, you don't need touring to stay relevant.
No.
You need touring to be able to make money so that you can make music.
And so you
It's
can continue to pay your road guys. I mean, you've got
exactly.
guys on the road with you who are making, could be making no money because they're out here trying to live out their dream as well while you're trying to crush it as much as you can. And like you said, oh, that person was just here. Well, yeah, they're going to keep rocking and rolling so that they can get to those, those numbers and arena shows and, be somebody like an FGL or Luke Combs or Luke Bryan. And people go, oh, well, they sold out arena. They must be rich. Yeah, they're rich, but you have to think about all the people they're paying. They're paying a publisher, they're paying a manager, a business manager, some sort of marketing manager. A label is taking a chunk of cash. Any writers that you have on those songs, any band guys, crew guys, lighting guy. I mean, there's a lot of people involved in the music industry that you do not hear the names of. And I've been one of those people before. And I've been the guy who's, running a tour and you look and you go, we're kind of broke,
Yeah.
but we're not making any money off of the streaming because streaming's a mess. So we got to just keep staying away from our families and keep crushing it right now as much as we can to be able to bring in that money to be able to go back in the studio and make more music.
Yeah, it's important. And we got to buy records. It's easy to
Absolutely.
sign up for these platforms and just lean on them, but just remember that,
And not
next
saying
time
don't go listen to it on Spotify. I'm not saying that at all
No,
because my
definitely listen to it on
Spotify,
Spotify.
my Spotify year end is insane. But if you like something, like KJ said before, go buy it on iTunes. Go out to a show. If you go to a show, don't just go to the show. Buy some merch. Throw $5 in the tip jar. Throw a 20 in the tip jar. Buy a
Yeah.
burger.
It's a
Stuff like
lot
that.
it's a lot like if you're going to go out to eat, you should tip well, that type of thing because they might make an hourly pay, but I can guarantee you that that's not enough,
Yeah,
So
for sure.
just remember the people that are, you know,
There's a lot of
doing
guys.
work as well.
I think that we can both attest to this, and you'll probably hear this a lot on the podcast. Is that there's a lot of guys who are writers during the week. They write Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and then they go on the road on Thursday, or they write Thursday, go on the road Thursday night, and they're out playing for somebody Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, back on Sunday, and then back to writing Monday morning. And they live on their draw from their publishing company because they're on the road with somebody who, the merch money may be getting them to the next city. That person may be paying them $50 a night, $100 a night, which sounds like a lot when you go, oh, $50 to play guitar or $100 to play guitar, $500 to play guitar. But that person then is paying those people. So that person's then losing that money out of their pocket. So when you do go to a show, when shows come back, and I'm really excited for them to come back, make sure you support and buy some merch and, buy a CD, have them sign it, say what's up,
Especially the lower tier independent artists
for
that
sure.
are trying to do their
Hey man,
thing.
I've been on a big record label. Trust me, you may be seeing some people in a bus, but trust me, we broke.
Yeah.
Like I've I've worked for a band that's been on one of the biggest record labels in the country, and trust me, we were broke. So
Yeah.
I mean, our merch guy sold the hoodie off his back for some money to get us to the next city because we ordered to buy the McDonald's because that's all we could afford.
Or
And
the
so,
gas station burrito.
oh man, yeah, for sure. Anybody on the East Coast, shout out Sheets. Love me some Sheets when you stop at a gas station. Nobody out here will understand that. But if you live on the East Coast, you definitely understand what I'm talking about. And if you're watching on YouTube, just like comment Sheets or comment your favorite Sheets thing below because I love Sheets. And KJ has no clue what the
No clue.
hell I'm talking about. It's like a gas station, but they have like a I wouldn't even call it a restaurant. Like you order on a screen, and I mean, they can get you a buffalo chicken salad, they can get you a burger, a burrito, like, and it's not terrible. It's really good. So shout out Sheets, anybody on the East Coast, put it right down there. It's fun. Nobody understands what I'm talking
Awesome.
about.
It doesn't matter.
So we've been at it for an hour, episode 1 of the Hook podcast. I thank you for joining us. Like I said earlier, and like KJ just said, make sure to check us out. If you're on Instagram, follow us at the Hook Pod, at the Hook Podcast. I'm sorry. Website www.http://www.
You don't even have to type all that in.
I know.
Thehookpod.com.
Thehookpod.com. And thank you for getting all that all set up, man. And
hey,
KJ earlier talked about the video and graphics that he does. Our podcast website looks pretty awesome. Not gonna lie.
Hey man. I built
And if you're watching this video
too, so
this probably looks legit too. Because it doesn't look it right now because we're on Zoom, but it probably looks legit. So shout out for that one too.
My man.
Spotify, find us on Spotify, find us on Apple Music if you want to listen to some of the songs that we talked about. Like we were talking about the new Russell Dickerson record, the new Chase Rice, some of the Old Dominion behind the curtain stuff. We'll be throwing that in the playlist. Just find us and follow us too on Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. That's one way that you can really help us as a brand new podcast.
Yeah.
We make no money. Yeah, hit the bell, get the bell on. I will be making bell jokes as we go around through this over the next, however long, hopefully forever as we do this. We are not backed by anybody. This is stuff that we have purchased on our own. The stuff you see here is expensive, and we've bought it so that it looks good. We spend the time as KJ's kids are asleep and my fiance is watching TV. We are taking time out of our day because we love how much there is stuff in music that people are not talking about. And we love writers and we love the behind the scenes. And that's something that we're going to bring you. And if you can just help us out, I mean, check out Hill Rose Clothing. That'll be linked on our website as well. That's KJ's clothing brand. It is awesome. You can order from there. That helps support the podcast as well. We make no money and we will continue to make no money. And that's not what we're here for. So that's all I got, man.
Just kidding.
What'd you say?
I said yet.
Yet.
Just kidding.
Absolutely.
Oh man, I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for bringing this to life.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope that everyone who's made it this far into the podcast that if you have suggestions, we've got a place on our website. If you want to comment on something, you want to send us something direct, we'll get that. We take pride, like Braley said, we're independent. We're not backed by anyone. We're not working for anyone. We have no initiative. So anything we talk about on this podcast is because it's what we believe. No one's telling us what to say. We're not backed by labels. We just want to talk the truth, and we want to give a platform for the amazing storytellers in country music.
Absolutely. Follow us everywhere. Make sure to subscribe. Next week, we'll have Raleigh Keegan on the podcast. I've seen Raleigh live. I'm really excited. I just read a clip of his story online, and I'm not going to say anything about it, but it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the dude's got a smooth voice.
Oh,
mean, he blows me away with that. It's really good.
And one thing I'm really excited to talk to Raleigh about is he might be the most interactive person I know on Twitter and he's got like 76,000 followers, which is not a lot to some people when people have 10 million, 14 million, but 76,000 followers on Instagram and Twitter. And that dude is always talking to somebody. Like he's always talking to somebody. And I'm really excited about that.
Me too.
Yeah. We're going to have Raleigh Keegan on next week. Episode 1, The Hook Podcast. Again, follow us online, follow us on Instagram at The Hook Podcast, follow us on our website, thehookpod.com. On YouTube, make sure to hit the bell, subscribe, check out Hill Rose Clothing, and suggestions on the website. I'm Braley. That is KJ. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.
Adios.